All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Elvin Lopez. I'm one of the trainers here at Universal Remote Control, and today's topic is going to be on a new software that we have called the MCS Tool. Now, the MCS Tool has a lot of unique properties, and it's still very new. The MCS Tool has had a soft launch, which means that there's a lot of features already available in the MCS Tool, but our engineers are looking to make it better. And what we're kind of just doing with this soft launch is having it available to our total control dealers and getting your feedback in terms of what we can do to make this device, or I'm sorry, this system a lot better. Now, what I ask of the current attendees is if you can please navigate to the questions dialog box and just type in yes if you can see my screen and hear my voice. Perfect. I can see the feedback coming in. So real quickly, usually I'm joined by Jeff Rogers, who's another member of the training team, and he helps me out by answering any questions you guys have in the dialog box. However, he's not available today, so it's just me, which is not a problem. But what I just want you guys to know is any questions that you place into the dialog box will not be addressed to the end of the class. So if you drop a question in there and I haven't answered it, I'm not ignoring you. It's just I'm going to wait till the end of the class so that we can get all the information out there, and then I will answer any questions you have. But please drop them in. It's better you just drop the questions in as you get them. That way you don't forget about them. And then at the end, we'll have a nice Q&A. Cool. Let's get started here. So the MCS tool, it's a cloud-based platform with tools allowing any programmer, any total control programmer, to log into any registered project for troubleshooting, monitoring, maintenance, testing, and perform system fixes. Now, there are a couple categories that you're going to be able to see inside of the MCS tool, starting with the device status page, the hardware testing page, and the network testing page. Now, since the MCS tool utilizes the cloud, this means that you can access the MCS tool from pretty much any device that has a web browser and an internet connection. I'll be doing this entire webinar from my MacBook. So I'm not using Windows, but since this is all based off the cloud, there is no need to lock yourself down with any type of operating system. You can do this on Mac, you can do this on Windows, you can even do this on your phone, which is actually pretty cool and a convenient feature to have. Now, this is going to be some information on the device status page, and do keep in mind that we are going to jump into the software and see all of this in real time as well. And the device status page, it's the first window that's displayed when logging into the MCS tool. This page provides vital system information such as the public/local IP address, your primary controller serial number, the CPU and memory usage, the URC device connection status, so it'll show you a list of all of the URC devices in the system, and it'll also tell you the status of that device. Is it connected to the network? Is it not connected to the network? Whatever the case may be. You also have the ability to do system reboots, view room activity, and refresh this entire page to pull in up-to-date information. And that's all the stuff that you can do directly from the device status window. Now, we're going to talk about the hardware and networking testing windows in just a bit, but I really want to focus on just this page right here for the moment. Now, system reboot will allow you to reboot pretty much all the devices except for the SNP2 and MFS. Those two devices, the firmware on them just doesn't allow them to be rebooted from the MCS tool. However, that can change later on, although I know that for a fact the MFS will never have that ability, but that's okay. You can still reboot pretty much any other device. And the other cool thing that you can do from this system reboot is you can actually create a schedule that reboots the base station or any other URC client based on the scheduled time that you've allotted. So if you want to reboot the base station every first of the month, you can actually do something like that, which is pretty cool. And like I said, we're going to look into all of this in detail. We're going to look at this in the software. We've got a system over here at HQ that we log into and we can view some things. Now, I do want to make one last call out on the device status window, and then we'll move on to the next topic here. And that's any of your Wi-Fi clients will behave in a particular manner when you're looking at device status. Now, if you guys have been doing Total Control for a while, you probably know that our remotes, they use what's called Quick Connect Wi-Fi. That's just the name of the chip that we use. And what the Quick Connect Wi-Fi does is it almost instantaneously reconnects to Wi-Fi when you pick up the remote. So here's some basics for you. Let's say you've got a 1080, an 820, or a 7100. Those are our three Wi-Fi user interfaces. The way that these devices work is when the remote goes to sleep, in other words, when the screen goes dark, it turns off the Wi-Fi. It's disconnected from the network. It does this to conserve battery life. With the Quick Connect Wi-Fi, though, once you pick up the remote, it almost immediately reconnects to your network so that your customer can continue with seamless control. Now, with that said, if your customer has that 1080, 820, or 7100 disconnected from its charging dock or charging cable, it means that if the remote is asleep, it will appear as offline. This doesn't mean that the device has disconnected from the network per se. It just could mean that the remote control is not currently connected to power. Now, again, we have to do that in order to conserve the battery life on those remote controls. That's why the 1080 and 820 can last for quite a while before you have to actually charge it to connect to a dock. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you see an 820 or a 1080 off the network, you may want to tell your customer, hey, can you put that connected to charging? That way I can see if it is an issue where it's disconnecting from the network, or if you just, maybe are having some intermittent networking issues. So just wanted to make that quick call out, and we're going to talk about the next window here, which is the hardware testing window. And this is what you're going to see inside of the MCS tool as well, and we're going to cover all of these different categories. So first thing here is the URC devices tab, and this will allow you to ping, discover, locate, view system information or just device information on that particular URC device, as well as test IR ports. Again, don't worry, we're going to jump into the MCS tool and you guys will see all of this in real time with real examples, but this is just a nice little overview so that you can kind of know what we're getting into. Then we have the non-URC device, and that's going to test any IR, RS-232, or IP devices that you have from the associated base station they're connected to. So if you have a cable box connected to an MRX2 in a separate room, you can actually go to that cable box, test particular functions of the code set, and see everything work in real time. Then we have the DMS AV and DMS 1200/100 tool. Now, I combine these two onto one particular bullet point here because they pretty much do the same thing. They give you the same options, except it depends on what you're testing. The DMS AV is a discontinued audio-video receiver that URC created a couple years ago. And if you have one of those, you can test it. You can set various attributes such as volume, listener distance, and other things that you would typically find inside of Accelerator, except you'd find it inside of this MCS tool. Then we have the MFS Discovery, which allows us to view the IP and MAC addresses and firmware of each MFS device. We also have the check sensors, which allows us to view all of the sensor ports of your connected base station, and it will not only just tell you what's connected to the sensor, but it'll also tell you the status of that device. So if you have, for example, a power state sensor on a cable box, it'll tell you what sensor port the cable box is connected to, the name of the device, so whether you call it cable TV, cable box, watch cable, whatever you call the device, it'll display inside of the check sensors box, and then it'll tell you the status, so is it on, is it off, whatever the case may be. The next option is TCL modules, and TCL modules will allow you to view all of the available 2-way modules in the system. So it's just going to compile a giant list, and it's going to tell you all of the 2-way modules that are currently running. Additionally, it's also going to give you the IP address of those 2-way modules as well, and it derives this IP address from the system file that's inside of the base station. Last but not least in here is the stream assignment, and this will allow you to view the sources that are connected to DMS, so whatever sources you have streaming over DMS, and you'll be able to see the associated stream numbers that are assigned by Accelerator. Now that's going to bring us into the network testing tab. And the network testing tab has a few things here that will only display information, and then a couple things where we can actually test things. So we're going to start with LAN and Wi-Fi. And LAN and Wi-Fi displays the same information found in step 6, which is network setup of Accelerator. Now keep in mind, there's nothing we can change here. There's nothing that we can test here. We're simply viewing the network information that was entered inside of step 6 of Accelerator. Then we have the ping test, and ping test works just like ping through command prompt. So if you've ever opened up command prompt, typed in ping plus your IP address, hit enter, and you view your packets received, packets lost, etc. That's exactly what this does, except you're doing it from the MCS tool. And you can ping URC devices, non-URC devices, it doesn't matter. It's just pinging through that network. Then we have the port forwarding option here, and this allows you to test open ports on your network. You can also test host names. You can test static IP addresses. So This is really crucial if you're going to be doing offsite control or if you're troubleshooting any offsite control related issues. So we've had a situation where we had a customer call in, or really a dealer call in into tech support with a offsite control issue, and they said that their DDNS wasn't working. So we logged into the MCS tool, we typed in the DDNS into the port forwarding test, and we saw that there was they were correct. There was an issue with it, but because we were inside of the MCS tool, we were able to take the static IP address of that home network, enter it into the port forwarding test here, and that worked without a problem. Turned out that customer actually had not paid their subscription to the DNS for that month. So obviously, when you don't pay your subscription to anything, you lose the service. So they lost the service, but they just made the payment, re-enabled the service, and there went offsite control. Then the last thing we have here is the URC connectivity test, and this is more of a report than a test. And what this does is it's going to make a giant list of all of your URC devices that are connected to your network. So any remote controls, any base stations, they all will appear on this list. And as they appear on the list, they will also tell you the IP address and MAC address of that particular device. Keep in mind, this is going to follow the same rules as the device status page, meaning that if you have a Wi-Fi remote and it's currently not connected to power and the screen is currently asleep, it means that that device will show up as offline. Again, this doesn't necessarily mean that device has fallen off the network. It could simply mean that the remote is asleep. So anytime you're going to log into a customer's system to do some type of troubleshooting, it would be in your best interest to make sure that all the Wi-Fi remotes are connected to power and charging. So how do we access the MCS tool? Now, the first thing you want to know about this is an offsite programming account is going to be required in order to access the MCS tool. Now, there's a couple things about this offsite programming form. One, it is going to be really easy. It's really easy. You just fill out the form, send it to the email that's attached to the form, and it's going to give you access to offsite programming, which is free to all total control dealers. And offsite programming is great. After you register a job, which to register a job, you have to do it on site. But after you've got that job registered, you can log into that job from anywhere in the world as long as you have an internet connection, and you'll be able to make programming changes, download to it. You'll be able to do everything as if you were on site, of course, minus physical installation. But you'll be able to make all your programming changes, change graphics, add or remove devices, add buttons, program macros, whatever, and then download to the system and see all of it in real time, which is really nice. This offsite programming form will also create an account for you for Z-Wave, which means that you'll have a MIOS account and you'll be able to program, configure Z-Wave devices through the MIOS portal, which that's also pretty big if you are a total control dealer. And then lastly, this form also gives you access to MCS. As a matter of fact, you'll be using the same credentials for offsite programming inside of the MCS Tool's website. And the URL for accessing the MCS tool is www.urcmcs.com. So it's a pretty simple URL to remember. It's just URC and then MCS. I'll show you how to access this inside of the dealer portal as well. So in case you do forget about it, we have a pretty straightforward way of finding it inside of the dealer portal. So we're going to take a look at this here, and we are going to show you everything. So we'll look at the device status page, we'll look at the hardware testing, we'll look at network testing. I'll show you how to access it from the dealer portal and more. Okay, so let's get this started here. So here is the URL, urcmcs.com. Before I even log in here, let me show you how to find it on the dealer portal. When you're on the dealer portal, after you log in, you're brought to the home page, and you want to go down to where it says Total Control 2.0 Dealer Resources. Once you select that, you will see pretty much directly in your face MCS Tool. Click on that, and once you scroll down a little bit, you will see the link www.urcmcs.com, and then there's also a link to the user guide, which I have attached to the handout section of this GoToMeeting thing. So if you want to download that, you can go ahead and download that and have it saved on your desktop. One more thing I want to show you, though, I'm going to go back one page here. Just in case you have not signed up for an offsite programming account, I want to show you where you can find the form. Now, I'm still on the dealer portal, and just to kind of do this from scratch, I'm going to go back to the home page. And when you're on the home page, and this is just kind of a general rule for anything on the dealer portal, if you're trying to look for something for total control, whether it's a document, programming guide, a total control module, whatever the case may be, you're going to always want to go to where it says Total Control 2.0 Dealer Resources. Once you're here, you'll scroll down and you are going to look for, actually it's right here under Programming Guides. And in Programming Guides, you'll find the offsite programming registration form, which is this right here. Just want to show it to you guys. Just get all this information filled out, and then you'll send it to this email here. You don't email it to training. You don't email it to your sales engineer. You don't email it to tech support. You email it to dealerservices@universalremote.com, and you'll get a response time in less than 48 hours. As long as you do it within business hours, you'll get a response time pretty much same day. Again, as long as you do it from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you'll get a response pretty much same day. If you do it on Friday, though, you're not going to get a response till Monday. So just want you guys to kind of be aware of that. But cool. So I'm going to just go straight over here to the MCS tool, which again is just www.urcmcs.com, which will bring us here. And I'm going to log in with the credentials that I've got here. So this is what's going to happen the first time you log in. You're going to see this blank white page here. However, to the very left, you're going to have what's called the Job Explorer. Now, the Job Explorer has one job, and that's to display all of the registered projects that are associated to your offsite programming account. Now, again, you must have offsite programming enabled in order to really use all of these features here. And I'm going to show you just what in a couple seconds what happens if offsite programming, or I'm sorry, not offsite programming, if offsite control is not enabled. So all of these jobs here are what have been assigned to this URC Dealer View account. And there's a couple things that we want to mention here. So the first thing that we want to talk about when it comes to the Job Explorer is that there are 3 possible statuses for any particular job. Green indicates that the job is online, so that means that the system is completely online. Now, the other potential status can be yellow. Yellow indicates that the system is online, however, the system's CPU or memory has gone above 85% for over 5 minutes, for 5 minutes or more. Then we have red, which you can see a couple systems here in red, but that's fine because that just means the system is offline. And these are all sample projects that we use for this MCS tool. So that's why you can see a couple greens and a couple red. So I'm just going to kind of go over that one more time. There are 3 possible statuses for the Job Explorer: green, yellow, and red. Green indicates the system is online. Yellow indicates that there is an issue with the system, meaning that the CPU or memory usage has gone above 85% for 5 minutes or more. And then lastly, red, which indicates that the system is offline. Now there's also a little filter icon here, and this filter will allow you to filter out all of your jobs. So let's say you have 32 or even 50 jobs all registered to your MCS account here, and you just want to filter them through which ones are offline or which ones are at a notification status. Notification, just kind of read it as yellow. That'll just show you whichever systems are currently in that yellow status. And notifications, which we're going to talk about in just a bit, is kind of a form of alerts. And like I said, we're going to talk about that in just a second. So I'm going to just remove this filter here. And the job that we're going to be connecting to is the MCS Dealer View. We're going to start from the top here, and you can kind of see that my Job Explorer has disappeared. If I want my Job Explorer to reappear, I'm just going to click on these 3 lines right here, and that will kind of hold the Job Explorer in place. And if I want to switch to another project, I can select any of these. To the right of that, we have alerts, and alerts work in a particular way. Now, the alerts window will inform the user's account with the selected system has either gone online or offline. And keep in mind that these alerts are generated anytime either the CPU or memory usage goes above 85% for 5 minutes or more. You'll also get notifications if the system goes offline for 5 minutes or more, and you'll also get a notification or an alert if the system has gone offline and then comes back online as well. So you'll get alerts for a couple different things. Now, next to alerts, we have reports. And once you select reports, the MCS tool downloads a report that contains a snapshot of the system's device status page. So I'm going to click on this real quickly so that we can actually see that. This system has a lot of devices, so it's going to take a couple seconds to populate. All right, here it is. And this is what we've got. So the report that you get after clicking report will show you the system name, which is just going to contain the MAC address of the system's primary controller, whether it be an MRX 30, 15, 10, or 8. Then you'll get the your dealer account email. It'll display the serial number. Keep in mind, some base stations that are older will not display the serial number, but any new base stations, so MRX 15 or 30, and the newer MRX, well, just the MRX 2s, will display the serial numbers. But some of the older MRX 10s and some of the older MRX 8s will not display serial numbers. Just an issue with their firmware that just doesn't make it happen. But all of our new products, however, will display their serial numbers. It'll tell you the current accelerator version that is on that base station. So I can see that this is the current version of accelerator that was on there. It'll tell me when was the last time it was downloaded to. So this one got a download on the 23rd of April. Last time it was rebooted, which also happens to be the last time this one got downloaded to. And then it'll also show us what the current firmware is on the base station. So this is the accelerator version. This is the version of your base station. So your MRX 10, 15, 30, whatever the case may be. Next, you'll see the resource usage along with the associated chart here. And it'll show you what the resource usage has been over the past 3 hours, 24 hours, and 7 days. If we scroll down a little bit lower, we get the URC devices, and this is just going to be a list of all the devices that are in your system with the MAC address, IP address, the online or offline status, as well as the last time those devices were seen online by the system. And also it'll provide you the serial number on any of those that support it. Next, if we scroll down even further, well, we don't really have to scroll down, it's already here. It'll show us all of the devices that are non-URC devices, including two-way modules will also display here. So you'll see every device that is added to the system that's being controlled over IR, RC32, or IP. Next, you'll see the currently running two-way modules. And then lastly, you will see all of the stream assignments. So this one's streaming 3 different sources, streaming Sonos, a DVD player, and it's streaming an SMP2. And that's the reports page. I'm going to go back to the device status window here so that we can continue looking at what else we've got. So again, alerts will send you alerts if the system has a spike of over 85%, whether it's CPU or memory. And if it spikes for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes or more, it'll send you an alert based on that. You'll also get an alert if the system falls offline, if it goes offline for 10 minutes or more. And then same thing, if the system comes back online after that offline state, you'll also get an alert as well. Going down through, actually, we're going to move to the right before we actually look through the device status. So we've got the username here, URC dealer view. And when we drop that down, we have a couple options. First option is overview, and overview will always bring you back to this page here. Then we have the account settings. You click on account settings and you get what you would expect to get: change email, change password, dealer information. And then as long as you're the business owner, the head with the account, you can actually add a new user. So if you want to give one of your employees, one of your installers, one of your programmers access to the MCS tool, you can enter all of their information here, give them credentials, and you can even set the amount of access that they have. So you can set them to just an installer profile, salesperson profile, which a salesperson profile would not be able to view the hardware testing or the network testing. Dealer installer would be able to view everything except the account settings that you see here. Change password is pretty straightforward. Dealer information will just give you information on us here. So this one here is Marty McFly. Again, this was just made for testing internally, so we like to have a little fun here. Next thing is system settings here, and system settings, well, right now I can't reboot any devices, but if I go to the other screen, I would be able to. I can get the system file, which one thing that you want to know about when you retrieve a system file, and that's that you're not going to retrieve the total control configuration in the normal means that you would expect. And I know that might sound a little confusing, but I'm going to explain it right now. I'm actually going to show you guys something that explains it for me. So in that integration guide on page 37, you will see that when you get a file from Accelerator through the MCS tool, it's actually sending you what's called a .gz file. And in order to open up that .gz file, you have to go into Total Control. You have to go into Accelerator, click File, click Open, And then you're going to look to find the files of type drop-down menu, and you're going to select the backed up file, which is compressed-backup-files.gz. That will open up your compressed file, and then you can make any programming changes inside of your accelerator software. So I just wanted to make that quick call out here. And then we have notifications here, and notifications will allow you to choose the jobs you want to receive notifications from, and you just check them off, and that's it. All right, I'm going to go back to the device stat. Actually, no, I'm going to go to view favorites. So view favorites is just where you can just assign favorites. So if you have multiple jobs and you want to pick those jobs and assign favorites for them, you'll simply you'll select the job from the Job Explorer first. So let's say I wanted to make Jeff Rogers Maine over here one of my favorites. I would click on that, have it display in the device status, click on the account tab up here, click add favorite. I can add a memo if I want. There we go. Favorite successfully added. Memos are just references, by the way. So like if somebody else on your team logs in, maybe you have a job that is notorious with networking issues. So you can just type in there networking issue job or something like that. Now when I click on view favorites, I can see J. Rogers Maine here, as well as I can see other favorites that were previously configured that were not done by me. And then from here, I can select any of these, remove them, connect to them, whatever the case may be. So that explains all of that. And log out, if you guys don't know what that means, then this might not be the webinar for you. All right, moving on. We're going to now actually go through the device status page. We had to talk about all that stuff there. And help gives you the contact information for technical support, and ironically gives you the dealer offsite account form that you would have needed in order to log in here anyway. Anyway, moving on. Under device status, now this job in particular is not giving us a public IP address, although obviously it is getting one. It all depends on the network security. Now, the security that we're using here in the office is corporate security. This is a corporate building, so it's not going to be something that we can see completely here. So again, depends on what networking gear you're using, depends on the configuration of that networking gear, but you will always see the local IP address, and the local IP address is just the IP address of the primary controller that is being used in that system. So for example, if I go back to J. Rogers Maine here, I can actually view the IP address, I can view the serial number. Now, remember what I told you guys during the PowerPoint. Older base stations will not display a serial number, so depending on what base station is being used and that other job we were looking at, that's why we're not seeing it here. So let me go back there. And the reason I'm going back to the MCS dealer view one is for a particular reason, and we're gonna get into that in a second. But for now, we can just leave this as is here. This here displays for me the CPU usage. So right now, this CPU is really not being used. And then we have the system memory. Now, system memory is broken up into two parts. There's TCL memory, which is how much physical memory your 2A modules have actually used on your base station. And then we have the cache memory. Now, cache memory is how much of the memory inside of your base station is being reserved for those 2A modules to use. So TCL memory is the physical amount of memory that those 2A modules have allocated from your base station, whereas cache memory is that memory that your base station is keeping in reserve. It kind of works like RAM, keeping in reserve so that if those 2A modules need those resources, it can take it from the cache memory as opposed to allocating more of that system memory. System reboot here, which I don't have access to just yet. I'm going to tell you why in a second. Will allow me to reboot any of these devices except for the MFS devices or an SNP2. Room activity, well, actually, you'll see this right here. So in order to use these three buttons here, so system reboot, room activity, refresh, and as well as to use hardware testing and network testing, you must make sure that offsite programming is enabled on your customer system. And the way that this is, so if you guys have never done offsite programming before, after you've enabled offsite programming, you've registered the job, and you're ready to download to the system, you need to download to the system, go into the settings menu, and you'll see an option that says offsite options. In offsite options, what you want to do is you want to enable offsite. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that to this system right now using the URC mobile app, which I know you guys won't get a chance to truly see this here, but you know what? I have a module on PowerPoint that shows you how to do this. So if you guys will bear with me for 1 second, I actually don't mind showing you that. So if we look at this here, because this is actually pretty clutch, and if you haven't done offsite programming, you won't know about it. So give me 1 second to find it here. Nope, that's not it. Here we go. And I just want this one. Here we go. So this will show you how to do this on the user interface. So in order to use the full features of MCS, I don't want you guys to really focus too much on the text here. I want you to focus more on the images. So after you've downloaded, after you've registered the job, etc., you're going to go into the settings menu of your user interface. So you'll look for the settings submenu. Inside of the settings submenu, you're going to see something that says offsite option. You'll click on offsite option and it'll show you this. And all you want to do is you want to click on offsite option and you want to hit the enable/allow offsite. Once you do that, that's it. Now I've done that on my user interface here. You get a pop-up message saying, hey, offsite programming has been enabled, and then you just hit OK to clear it out. So I've already done that on my user interface. I literally just did it right now. So I'm going to refresh this. Notice system reboot has become available and so has room activity. So right now everything is off, but you can see every room. If something was currently running in that room, you would see it populate under device name, and then room power would tell you on if that device is currently in use. But now I can click on system reboot here, and system reboot will allow you to reboot the primary controller now, set a weekly schedule to reboot the controller, or reboot any other URC device that you have in the system. Yeah, the reason only those two are showing up is because those are the only two that are currently online. As you can see, a lot of these devices are offline. This rack has been used and abused quite a bit, but this allows us to kind of show you certain devices offline. Now, the last thing that I'm going to talk about here is this little slider. So you can view room activity on this graph here. I'm sorry, system activity on this graph here based on 1 hour, every 3 hours, or the last 3 hours, I should say, the last 24 hours, or the last 7 days. So you do get a couple different viewings of your system. So this is kind of like the highest view mode here. So again, the last 7 days, the last 24 hours, the last 3 hours, and the last hour. Those are the things that you can view on this graph here. And this graph is pretty intuitive. It's got 2 lines. It's got CPU and memory. And if you drag this around, you'll be able to see all of that. Go into hardware testing here, and this is going to be the second tab here. And hardware testing allows us to test the various attributes of URC devices, certain non-URC devices, allows us to view the MFS devices, check sensors, and you're going to see all of this right now. We'll start with URC devices. First thing you do is you get a giant list of every room in your system, every device that's a URC device, and every MAC address and IP address of those devices. So as I'm scrolling down here, you can see all of that. Let's say I want to pick the MRX30 here. I can ping it. So we can see the response from the ping test, and this is going to be the same ping test that we'll see in network testing in just a bit. I can hit Discover here. And what Discover does is it just shows you every device in your system that uses that same model. So this is showing me all of the MRX30s in this particular system, and it's showing me their MAC address and their IP address. Locate, which if I click on it really won't do anything for us, but what Locate will do is it's going to flash the 2 front LEDs of the MRX30 in this particular instance. If you did it on the keypads, it would just flash the keypads. Whatever device you click this on, it's just going to flash the lights on it. Makes it a little easier to find if all your devices are in a rack. And then info here, which shows you pretty much everything you want to know about the device you just selected. So I selected the MRX30, shows me the CPU usage, shows me the TCL memory usage, the total memory usage, the firmware, IP address, offsite port, public IP address, anything that is available, it will show me. There's no IR devices connected to this, so clicking on test IR really won't do anything for us here. But I'm going to show you a better way to test IR, and that's by going to non-URC device. If you go to non-URC device, you can click on, for example, this family cable box here that's connected to the MRX30. If we click test it, we can actually test any command, any IR command from that device's code set. So if we pick something like picture-in-picture move here, I can click test it. It'll send the command over the network to the base station, which the base station will then send it to the IR port that it is connected to. Now this one is just set to IR port all because, again, this is just a test system, but I just want you to be aware of that. You can do this with RS-32 devices as well. And of course, you can do this with IP-based devices. So if we click on something here, hit test it, this is actually from a two-way device, so it's not going to allow us to test anything, but you guys get the idea. DMS AV tool and DMS 1200/100 tool are pretty much the same thing. The only difference are the devices that they're testing. So what I'm going to show you through the 1200/100 tool is available through the DMS AV tool. First thing you do after you click on it is you're going to pick your DMS device. So if we had other 1200s and 100s in the system, we would see them listed here. I'm going to click on the only one that's available, and I'll click Connect. After that, we choose one of the zones. 1200 supports 8 zones, 2 preamp, 6 powered zones, and you'll select one of the zones and connect. After you've connected, you have all of this available. Now, a lot of these settings are actually available inside of Accelerator, except they're here in the MCS tool, and you can test all of these remotely in real time. So you can do volume, you can set the max volume, you can test the max volume or change the max volume, the turn on volume, whether you want last used, preset, whatever the case may be, the turn on volume ramp rate, the listener distance to the speaker, tone and balance, your room EQ, you can change it up a little bit. And then these are the test options that are temporary. So pretty much once you disconnect from the MCS tool, these will just go back to whatever they had going on. So you can turn on or off a particular zone. You can change the particular source that's playing through there, the particular stream here. Now notice 1, 2, and 3 show an actual device name. Meanwhile, 4 through 32 are just there. That's because DMS supports up to 32 streams. This particular project, though, is only using 3 out of those 32. And then, of course, the volume and mute on or off. So these are the things that you can test in real time. And then these are audio settings that you can adjust in real time. Pretty cool stuff. MFS Discovery will simply tell you if there's any MFSs in the project, and it'll display them with the MAC address and serial number, which we're going to see in just a second. So we can see all of the different MFSs that are available here. We see the MAC address, we see the MAC address, the IP address, and then this little thing that you see at the end, that's the current version number of that MFS device. And we can choose any one of these. We can ping it, we can test it, which testing is just going to reach out to it, and it's just going to make sure that it can communicate to the MFS and that it can verify that the firmware is the latest. And then refresh will just refresh this page. Cool. Then we have check sensors, and unfortunately this system's not using any sensors, but if you had devices that were connected to sensors, you would see the base station that the sensor is connected to, the sensor port that the sensor is connected to, the device that's assigned to that sensor, and then the status, whether it's on or off. Next, we have TCL modules, and this shows you a list of all the running two-way modules. So this one's running Z-Wave, and it's also running Doorbird. And what it's going to also show you is the IP and MAC address of, if applicable, to that two-way device. Now, both of these are using dummy IP addresses, so the ping option here will do absolutely nothing for us. But if we click on this info button here, you can see that it's running the module. The module is running. There's no MAC ID associated to it. It's using a dummy IP address, and it's going to show you what the two-way module version is. Sorry about that. Just meant to highlight this. And that's actually really important because if you're having an issue with a two-way module and you want to report the issue to our software team, we are going to need that version number. So having this here easily available is really, really nice. Then lastly, the stream assignments, and this is just showing you what the actual device that's streaming is, what room it's being streamed from, and then the stream number that's associated to it. And then you can save this if you need to just print it out or anything like that. It'll save it as a CSV file here. And that's hardware testing. Hardware testing lets us do a lot of things with the URC devices. It allows us to change settings inside of DMS, temporarily test things through DMS, view any MFSs, and check sensors, see the two-way modules that are available in the system, and everything like that. Now we'll jump into network testing here, and the first thing that we have in network testing is LAN and Wi-Fi. And just like I told you guys in the PowerPoint, there's not much that you can see and do with this here. It's just going to show you the local, the LAN information, and then the wireless information, if it's been entered. Ping test, just like command prompt, enter in the IP address, hit ping down here. So if I wanted to do something like, well, might want to enter something that's valid here. Oh my God, I can't type today, guys. Hit ping. Now this is just a random IP address that I just typed in here. So if we get a response, cool. If we don't, again, it was random. So yeah, this IP address isn't actually real. So yeah, it's 100% packet loss, but you get the idea. It's just like ping and command prompt. Next, we have port forwarding. So this is where you'll enter in the DDNS or the public static IP address, and then you'll enter the port number here. It'll just tell you successful or not successful, depending on what you type in here. And this is strictly or mostly for offsite control. You need to have this information entered here. One thing that I do want to mention when it comes to offsite control, because this is a question we got in the morning version of this webinar, is can you use like a security camera's static IP or their DDNS? And yes, you can. So for example, if you have something like Leland or Wattbox, which they use their own DDNS for their products, you can enter that in here and use that. And from my knowledge, I believe that is free. Otherwise, you can use DDNS services such as NoIP. Oracle also has a DDNS subscription service as well. There's also another one which I think is freedns.org. Those are a couple options that you can use. And we also give you some options inside the offsite control programming manual. And then the port number here, that's going to be whatever port you port forwarded within your router. Keep in mind, if you are doing things like double NATing, make sure that you do a DMZ on the ISP's router. That way, anytime you're doing offsite control, the ISP's router just completely ignores anything and pushes all the information over to your professional router. Next, we have the IP scanning test, and what this is going to do is it's going to make a window for us here, and it's going to show us every device with their IP address. It's kind of like a soft IP scan. So here you can see everything that's on the network that's using IP. Got quite a few things on here, and you can see that not just URC devices are showing up. You can see that we've got an Asus Tech here, a Texas Instrument device. You're getting a nice list of all the devices and their IP address, which is pretty cool. And you can save that, so if you need to save it and have it stored on your computer, you've got it. Last thing here is the URC connectivity test. And what this is just going to do is it's going to create a report that's going to show you every URC device in the system, their MAC address, and their current online or offline status. Again, keep in mind any Wi-Fi remotes, if they are asleep or disconnected from their charging station, then they will not appear online. And what I'm going to just lastly do here is I'm going to bring back up the integration guide here for MCS. And I'm just going to kind of just briefly show you this so you guys can kind of get an idea of what you can use this for. So here we've got the entire table of contents, and you can jump to anything here. So if you want to review something from hardware testing, you can click on hardware testing here. It'll take you to the specific section. And then from here, you can view everything that we were talking about. And everything is broken down into bullet points and topic points, and it just tells you everything that's going to happen here. So for example, in the URC devices tab that we were in under the hardware testing, if we would have selected a base station and clicked on Test IR, that button would have flashed all the emitter ports on the applicable base stations. Of course, the emitter ports need to be in use first. But that's all it's really doing. And again, you can scroll through all of this and see everything that is available through the MCS tool. And you guys don't even need to download this from the portal. It's in the handout section, so you guys can download this and start using it. Now, the last thing, I know that we are going to, in the very near future, have an e-learning that's going to be available that's going to cover all of these topics. For right now, though, it's just going to be the integration guide. And just in case you do need to find it and download it, you can find it on the dealer portal. And you just go to urcportal.com, log in, go to dealer resources, MCS tool. And then from here, you can locate the user guide, download it, see the link here, and you'll be all set. That's everything that I've got for you guys, though. So what I'm going to say here is we're pretty much at the top of the hour here. Just going to have a nice Q&A session. So if you guys have any questions, please drop them into the questions dialog box. I'll answer whatever questions you guys have to the best of my ability on MCS. If you don't have any questions, thank you for joining on today's webinar. Thank you for taking the time and listening about URC. My name is Elvin. If you have questions outside of the webinar, you can always email training@universalremote.com. Thanks again for joining. I'll leave the questions box open, or I'll leave the webinar up for a couple more minutes just in case you guys do have questions. And yeah, thanks again, TGIF, and have a great weekend. Hey, Larry. So your question is, was this webinar recorded and be available for viewing? We really don't post our webinars anymore, but however, I did record this, so I'm going to see if I can get it posted for us. But I would just say there's really no guarantees. The integration guide is going to be your for sure resource for this. What I can do, Larry, since I know you join our webinars pretty consistently, and I do have your email address from your registration, if we do post it, I will email you. If we don't post it, then I did my part by recording it. Anytime. All right, guys, I will be closing out the webinar box here. So thanks again for joining. Have a great weekend.